I appreciate that. I appreciate this man. I appreciate everything he has done for us in Franklin County. Any police officer nowadays puts their life on the line every time they go out. We live in volatile times now. And many are quitting, many are leaving. Kevin has maintained this for over 20 years now. And there are a lot of people running for sheriff. But I like Kevin White because of the way he came up. He came up through the ranks. Thank you. He came up through the ranks. He's worked in just about every area of the sheriff's department you can imagine. He's been in drug enforcement. Leads the SWAT team, as well as teaching most everybody in here, I think, took concealed carry. Kevin White taught him that class. He also trains church teams, security teams, EMS. He just does a little bit of everything. And he's running for sheriff, and I want him to come now and present his vision. Just tell us a little bit about what he sees for Franklin County. Make him welcome, Brother Kevin White. Yeah. Share your testimony with us, all right?
All right, I will.
God bless you.
Well, I guess that answers that question, Blake. I'm going to tell the rifle story. So, thank you, Pastor Wallace and your wife for having me here in the congregation. I'm truly thankful to be here. I spent a lot of time in this part of the county. One of my best friends growing up, and to this day, is Harriet Church. And I spent a lot of time in a little, we call it a weight room, but it was just a little shack behind his house that we made into a weight room. And I've truly enjoyed. I've been in this community quite a bit. I was just sitting there thinking about the amount of time I've served in this community. I remember when Perry's Pond broke. I said, Lord, please let them put the dam back. We need it. That's such a memorable place that Harry and then Jennifer got married here. And just a lot of good memories as far as this area. Again, my name is Kevin White, and I am running for sheriff. I was born and raised in Franklin County in the Youngsville community near Flat Rock Church. Flat Rock Church is my home church. I served, I've been a member there for all my life. I went to work. First I started my public service in the fire department. I served 10 years with Youngsville Fire Department until I got on with the sheriff's office. After the fire department, I went and worked at the Department of Correction in Bunn for a couple of years. That's where my first service as far as in the corrections industry. After leaving the Department of Corrections, I went to the sheriff's office. I was working at the state at the time. I went to basic law enforcement training at night for 9 months while maintaining my job, and then I was hired on by Robert Redmond in 2000, June 18, 2000, and I served under Robert Redmond. I've served under 5 administrations and 4 sheriffs since 2000. First day on the job was somewhat interesting. I went up to the sheriff's office and I went to the sidewalk, and there was 3 guys standing on the sidewalk that morning. And I asked my sergeant, his name is Simon Perry, and I asked Simon, I didn't know him at the time. I said, Sarge, my dad worked with the Department of Corrections, so I knew a little bit about the rank structure, and I knew 3 down on his shoulder meant he was sergeant, he was running things. So I said, Sarge, where's the rest of our squad at? And he said, you make a full squad. And my stomach just dropped a little bit because I know how big Franklin County is. So I was assigned to Youngsville and Franklinton. That was my district as a patrol officer. After patrol, I spent about 5 years on patrol. I left patrol and went over to the civil division where I actually worked for Harry Up Church, which it was tough. It was really tough working for Harry. Actually, it wasn't. We had a great time. Harry told me to serve my papers and make my hours and keep my mouth shut and I would be fine. And that's exactly what I did. After civil, my sergeant, Simon Perry, said, you're detective material. You should apply for detective. So I had an interest there also. So the Lord just confirmed that I was going to the detective division. So I went to the detective division. I served there about 5 years, I guess. I'm just guessing at the amount of years. They kind of run together at this point. While I was in investigations, I did sexual assault investigations. While I did elderly abuse investigations, I did property crime investigations. And I enjoyed it there. I worked mainly in the Youngsville and Franklinton area during property crimes, but around the county in those other capacities. I was then promoted to Detective Sergeant of Domestic Violence. I spent about 3 or 4 years in domestic violence. Just after I was assigned to the domestic violence supervisor, it was a lady named Tracy Williams that was brutally murdered by her estranged husband. And that just empowered me to change domestic violence response at the sheriff's office. So I sought out a program called Lethality Assessment Protocol, and we implemented that throughout the whole county. That wasn't just the sheriff's office. We got that done. I worked closely with Safe Space, Monica Kearney, and the North Carolina Coalition of Domestic Violence, Emily McCool, to make sure that Franklin County had a premier domestic violence unit, and it stands to this day. I'm so proud of the things that we were able to accomplish for domestic violence victims. So after spending about 5 years in domestic violence or so, I went over to Lieutenant of Criminal Investigations. There I supervised the City Crime Bureau of Investigations. Excellent people there that come out and do fingerprints. They did major crime scenes also. Supervised them. I supervised the drug unit, supervised regular criminal investigators. I shouldn't say regular, but the regular criminal, I did the job too, so it was regular investigation. And that I stayed there as lieutenant for some time, and then I was promoted again to where I am today, which is captain of special operations, which I supervise the drug unit, the criminal interdiction, which we call CAT, the SWAT team commander. I served on our SWAT team for 20 years, and that I shoot competition when I have a chance. I love the firearms aspect of it. I teach basic SWAT at a couple of community colleges. I like to teach church security, and of course, concealed carry is a passion of mine. The sheriff's office is my passion. It has been. It's not a position for me. I've enjoyed serving my community. I could have left and went other places, I assume, but I really didn't want to, because I wanted to serve the people that I work, that I grew up with each and every day. So that does make me somewhat different. Years of experience is different than qualifications, and I believe that my years of experience has been thorough. That I understand what the sheriff's operation on a daily basis is, understand the criminal aspect that we have in our community. I understand the things that we need to look forward to tomorrow to make sure that we can train our deputies. We can give them the skills necessary to do the citizenry the best job possible. We need to ensure that. We need to equip them and make sure that they have the correct equipment to give them the tools necessary to perform their job. And then we have to have accountability. We have to have a management that has come through the ranks. You can't have oversight without insight. How can you supervise people when you don't know what they do? And I would ask you that. I would ask you that when you're making your decision about who you want for your sheriff. How in the world could you have oversight without insight? So when we move into the last stage of that, when we have to monitor, we have to make sure that we have the ethical means to make sure that we're accountable to our citizens in the county. So we have to have training, equipment, accountability, and the management in place to make sure that we are giving you the product that you're paying for. And the last thing that I'll mention on that line is the morale. It's a tough time to be a law enforcement officer. It is a tough time to put on that uniform and walk these streets. And you have to get into the aggregate of this situation to make sure that our men and women that are on this daily and nightly, or night shift is tough. How many people's worked night shift before? Yeah. Oh, that's a long night. That 12 hours during the night is a lot longer than that 12 hours during the day. So we have to make sure that they are supported both mentally and physically. I am so thankful that the people that I've supervised, that we have had the relationship, that we could have a conversation with each other, we could lean on each other, we could make the corrective measures in private, that we don't have to make them in public. And that's a motive, is not just be a manager, but be a leader. And that's what I'm about. As I see Pastor Wallace up here this morning leading in his enthusiasm, that's what a leader is, to step out front, give it 110%, probably more than we should commit as far as the commitment level we have at the sheriff's office and the community, but really stand in that gap for between our citizens, our employees, and the criminal element that will always exist within our communities. So I ask you that you consider Kevin White when you go to the voting booth, because as that video said, the stakes are too high to elect somebody else. And I thank y'all again. I've got one little short story. I've been contemplating back and forth if I was going to tell it this morning. I usually tell this story in my concealed carry class, and I have a rifle that I bring to the concealed carry class. And I didn't know if Pastor Wallace was going to feel so kindly about me walking in here with a rifle this morning. He said, don't have to have a permit for a long rifle. So I'm going to tell y'all this story because it does just go align with Sunday. And this is the Lord's Day. And let's make it about Him, no doubt. So back some time ago, me and my wife, Blair, we decided to consolidate our gym memberships. So that meant that I was now going to be going to the gym with a woman, my wife, which I had never done before much because I lived at the Harriet Church where we wiped sweat with one end of the towel and blew our nose on the other end of the towel. There's a difference between a gym and a fitness club. And I grew up in a gym. Harry would love to hear me say this. He'll get pumped up. So we decided to go to the gym together, and there was a guy there, and he came up to me, and I've got a 94 Chevrolet pickup truck. And he said, I just love that truck. And I said, he's got to be okay if he likes my pickup truck. So he came up to me and he started talking, and I figured most of the time in the gym, the guy didn't want to talk to me, he just wanted to talk to Blake, It still is the gym. So we began talking back and forth, and I realized shortly thereafter that Gary had no desire to do anything but talk to everybody. And Gary was about 65 years old, and he was a bodybuilder type guy. He was really in great shape. And I went into the dressing room one morning, and Gary was in there, and he took off his shirt. And when he took off his shirt, I put mine back on. I said, I'll just ease right out the door with this shirt on. So we go at like 5 o'clock in the morning. That's our time. And there's just a different crowd of people that go to the gym. You got to be somewhat off your rocker to go to the gym that time of morning, that is. So we're there, and people at 5 we call them 5 a.m.ers, they usually don't miss very much. They're going to be consistent with their workout. Well, Gary got missing for about 2 or 3 weeks, and he came back and he had lost like 15 or 20 pounds. And I asked Gary, what in the world was going on? Because I talked to Gary every day. And he said he'd been diagnosed with cancer. Of course, it caused my heart to drop a little bit when he said that. But I knew he was a fighter, and he's going to fight it every way he could. And that's exactly what he did. So, with that being said, me and Blair did a few things. We took him a gift certificate or two, and just loved on him a little bit as a gym community, but nothing overwhelming. Well, one day Gary called me and he said, "Kevin, come to the house." So I called Blair and at work, which I never do. I never call Blair at work. She never calls me. And usually, when she calls me, I pick up the phone. I'm like, "Guys, I got to go." My wife never calls me. So he called me, and me and Blair went to his house. And he reached behind his couch when we got into the living room, and I didn't know how this was going in. And he pulled out this long, what I didn't bring this morning, he pulled out this long Henry rifle. And it's, as you know, it's got the copper receiver. It's a beautiful rifle. And I knew he had bought this rifle for his mountain cabin in West Virginia that he had bought for after his retirement. So he handed me that rifle and he said, "Kevin, I want you to have this rifle." And it was troublesome. It was troublesome if I was going to take it, because I knew every day or every time I opened up my safe and I looked at that rifle, I was going to think of Gary. And it was bittersweet, you know, I think that much of the dude. Well, he handed it to me and he said, "I want you to have it." And I said, "Gary, you really don't know. I really don't have guns that I don't shoot. I don't want a safe full of guns. I want stuff. I use whatever I have." And he said, "I want you to have it. I want you to use it." And I said, to myself, I was saying, "I don't know how to use this thing. I don't know what I'm going to do with it." Well, let me just tell you a little bit prior to that. In 2020, me and Blair and the rest of our crew did a concealed carry class just about every weekend. We did at least 3 a month. And we retired. And in January of 2021, thankfully, it was kind of tapering off a little bit. We weren't going to do a concealed carry class every weekend. And Gary said, "I want you to use this rifle." And I thought about how I could use it. He said, "I want you to shoot it." He said, "I don't want you to add a scope to it. I want you to just keep it the way it is, the way it was meant to be." Well, I knew in the back of my mind I'd never shoot it. However, I said, "I'm going to use it. I'm going to use this thing." All those people in 2020 came to our class, and I never said anything about Jesus Christ. I had the intention of talking to Gary about Jesus Christ, but the medicine they gave him took him right up to just a few days. They said, "When this medicine runs out, then you only have a couple of days left." Well, on February 14th of 2020, Gary passed away. And I never had that opportunity. And I told Blair when I got home, I was so heavy-hearted. I said, "I'll never miss another opportunity that the Lord gives me to tell people about Jesus Christ." So since February of 2020, we give the rifle story each and every time. And I tell them exactly what I just told you, except I'm holding the rifle at the same time. So if you want to see the full unedited version, just come to the concealed carry class. But I say this. Gary told me to take that rifle and use it. Jesus offered his salvation for each and every one of us. It was free. Gary gave me that rifle. I didn't do anything to earn it. He also said, "Don't do anything to it. Don't add to it, and don't take away from it." And that's what Jesus has done for us. He is the complete gift. And all we have to do is accept it. Admit, believe, and confess. They told me that in Sunday school. Admit we're a sinner, believe in our heart, and confess that we're a sinner. And we'll be saved. We can trust, just like you're sitting in that chair. You trust that chair. We need to trust Jesus Christ so that he keep us up off the floor. And I just thank y'all for listening to my Gary story this morning, and most of all, having us here and my family. And I look forward to seeing y'all after the service. Thank you very much.